Hello guys and welcome back to Big Brother, and today we are going to be talking all things week 2, and boy, what a dramatic week it has been. This cast is actually very interesting to watch. They have some great moments, they have some particularly poor moments, and they have some very interesting gameplay tactics that, well, let's just say some are working better than others. But before we get into the episode, if you're liking what you're seeing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get into the video, shall we? So the episode started on Sunday night with some questions about why the votes weren't adding up. Obviously, we saw that Riley decided to turn on his group and vote Zay out, which was absolutely fascinating. But he's not letting that slip to anybody. And so there was a lot of questions buzzing about who could potentially be the person who backstabbed the alliance and went over to the other side. I mean, it wasn't a particularly close vote, but knowing who your enemies are and who your friends are is very important, especially at this stage in the game when there seems to be a little bit of a divide in the house. I have to say, Riley's doing a fantastic job of keeping this covert operation undercover, so I have to give him props where props are due. So, obviously, the reason why he did this is because he feels like it would be better for his game if he helps Rachel and Ashley, because they'll do more for him in this game than the boys could potentially do. Now, Keanu and Will, they were doing the maths. They were sitting there and they were like, 1 plus 1, it's adding to 3. What's going on here? Not sure what's happening. And Keanu doesn't trust Will. Will doesn't trust Keanu. Will's then pulling like Kelly aside and being like, yo, are you the person? Did you flip on our alliance? And Kelly's like, no, I wouldn't. I'm backing the boys, because I'm getting the impression that Kelly is a little bit of a pick-me. Just a little bit. Just a little bit of a pick-me. It's giving, I want the boys to succeed and I want the girls to fail, and I don't know how I feel about that. But anyway, this is absolute chaos. The episode started out so well. Everyone's scrambling. Nobody knows what's going on. And so far as I'm aware, Riley has not been caught out. And everyone has their own suspicions about who could potentially be the secret mole. I have to say, fascinating. Loved it. Really great energy from everybody. So I got to give them props where props are due. This was a great way to start the episode. So the head of household challenge was up next, and I've seen a lot of people complain about the fact that eviction nights are shorter now because they don't include the head of household challenge. And to an extent, I agree that I would like to see it live so that I can have some kind of indication of who the head of household is going to be going into the next week. However, I do prefer it when they make the head of household challenges more elaborate and therefore more time consuming, so that we can't just see them on a live feed of the episode. Do you know what I mean? Like when we're watching the eviction night, we can't just ask a couple of questions and that is the head of household decided. I like that there's a little bit more of a challenge element to it and it takes a little bit more time. That is far more fascinating to me than, okay, Julie Chen's going to ask you 10 questions. Whoever gets the most correct wins. It's a little bit dull and a little bit boring. And I feel like it removes the stakes as well. So anyway, moving on from that, I do feel like this challenge was needlessly complicated. It feels like we've really dialed up the complication status on this, and I'm fine, but like, come on guys, it's a little bit much. So the mastermind snuck into the house. I didn't mention this in my week 1 review because I was like, what the fuck? But he snuck in and he stole stuff out of the safes in the house. And it turns out that it's the head of household key and 3 powers that are actually very useful. And I have to say, this was a great setup for the challenge until they were like, oh yeah, you guys are going to be going into the sewers. And I was like, of course. What murder mystery doesn't end up in the sewers at some point? And then they were like, oh, but you're going to be in the dark. And I was like, oh, fabulous. And I have to say, it was absolutely hysterical to watch everybody bumble about in the darkness. I think it works so much better doing one of these dark challenges when there's more people. I remember, I think it was it last season or 2 seasons ago, or maybe 3 seasons ago? They did like a haunted house one. It was in the dark, but they went in one by one. And it wasn't as much fun as watching them all bumble around in the darkness together, bumping into each other, knocking things over. It was just so entertaining. The set was incredible. It genuinely looked like they went into the sewers of Los Angeles. Like, I was a little bit surprised, but they did a fantastic job of these sets. I have to say, the show has a budget like any other, and I'm all for it all the time. So who got the powers? Who got the head of household? Well, Rachel picked up the head of household key and then swapped it out for another key. And I was like, no. And then Jimmy like swoops by, picks it up and wins head of household. So if Rachel had just stuck to her guns and kept the key that she had in her hand, she'd have won head of household. But equally, I feel like winning head of household at this point in the competition, not as good as you think it is. Because, as we're going to see, Jimmy had a little bit of a stinker this week. So, who won the powers, you might ask? Well, Mickey won a power, Keanu won a power, and Kelly won a power. So, after that, we have one person in charge of head of household and 3 people with powers. And I have to say, they were not who I was expecting to get the powers. Mickey was a rogue one. Keanu is definitely going to cause some issues because him and Jimmy are like this against each other. Genuinely fascinating to watch. And I have to say, it's going to be an interesting week to watch. So what were these powers, you might ask? Well, that's a good question. Keanu got a power that allows him to double his chance at a veto, which means that instead of there being 6 people competing, the 3 nominees, the head of household, and then 2 randomly picked people, it's going to be 1 randomly picked person and somebody that's going to be competing on Keanu's behalf and is going to be an ex-housemate, which is really, really fun, except for the fact that well, we'll get to that bit in a minute. And then in Kelly's power was another interesting one. That allows her to, once the final nominations have been set, if she's still on the block, she can go, hang on a minute, I'm going to compete in my own other veto competition and potentially win another veto, taking myself down from the block. Meaning, if those 2 powers are activated in the same week, Jimmy's going to have to put up 5 people. 5! That is a crazy amount of people. That is... oh, that's almost a third of the house. That is mental. That is absolutely crazy. In fact, it is a third of the house. Wait, how many people are there? 16, 17? Yeah, there were 17 people. There's 16 now. Jimmy can't put up himself. So that's a third of the house that he's having to put up this week. That's mental. Anyway, moving on. Mickey, she gets a head of household takeover. If she doesn't like the nominations, if she's on there, if she's whatever, she can take over the head of household at any point. I think that's it. I don't think there was anything. Oh, and then they can interrogate, and if they correctly guess it, then the head of household stays the same. If they incorrectly guess it, then obviously it's done for. Like Mickey takes over. So that was quite cool. So these powers, very, very interesting, very, very exciting, changing the game. Let's just put it that way. So obviously, Jimmy is very, very, very determined to find out who has these powers. He suspects Keanu has one, but Keanu lied to his face. He suspects Kelly has one, again, potentially lied to his face. Oh no, did Kelly tell him? I think Kelly might have told him, actually. I could be potentially wrong, but I know it comes out at some point. They all start telling each other at some point, and I'm confused on the timeline. But anyway, Jimmy's walking around going, oh, if you have a power and you don't tell me, that's a one-way trip to Block City. And I was sitting there going, oh, Jimmy, this saying that you got, that you're going around the house saying, you've let the power get to your head. You're doing a heism. You're doing a heism from BB25 where he let the power get to his head, and oh my goodness, everybody hated him that week. Everybody absolutely despised him and then got him out the next week. So, Jimmy, you really have to play this carefully because you don't want to piss off people at all. You don't want to piss people off at all. But the people that he did nominate, I feel like he nominated fairly safe people. Keanu, obviously his main target. Duh. Kelly, because he believes that Kelly and Keanu are potentially working together, which they are, but Kelly is ready to backstab him at any moment. Keanu believes that they're working together, but Kelly's like, nah, I'm just making him believe that. And I think that's what she told Jimmy, actually. Not that she had the power, but that she's working with Keanu, kind of. And then Adrian was the last pick as well. Interesting nominations. I don't know how to feel about them currently because they're not going to stay there for very long. Let's just put it that way. But I think that Jimmy has made his vendetta clear, and what he should have done if he wanted Keanu out the house is make sure that Keanu gets put up for the blockbuster, not for the veto challenge, because obviously he doesn't know that he has this veto like power up, But it was just a silly mistake. If you want to get rid of someone, you have to backdoor them. You can't give them now 2 opportunities to get off the block. You have to shrink that down a little bit. If you put 3 people up on the block that you don't want to see go home, and one of them wins, cool. Take yourself down. I'll put Keanu up. If I win, I'm going to take one of you down and put Keanu up. That is what you should be doing if you want to get rid of Keanu. Not putting him up straight away. That was just a show of bravado. That was you trying to be the big man. And he actually ate you up. You delivered this very, very rehearsed speech. And he just put his glasses down and started snoring. He ate you up. I cannot believe that out of everybody in this house, I'm on Keanu's side. I'm not on Keanu's side, but like, I like Keanu. I find him very entertaining. And then there's Jimmy, who's just, for want of a better word, he's acting like a little bit of a mean gay. And listen, do what you want to do, but you ain't going to make friends in the house that way, unless it's with the girls, which he has done. But you get what I mean. You're not going to make yourself out to be any less of a target when you're delivering speeches like this, do you know what I mean? In week 2, at least wait until like week 5 or week 6 when you get to the jury phase, do you know what I mean? Come on, be sensible. So we come to the veto draw, and once again, Keanu and Jimmy completely butt heads, and it is so entertaining. So what happened was Jimmy basically said, and we'll get 2 other people into the competition, and Keanu just stands up and goes, no, you won't. You're only going to have 1 because I'm activating my power. And I was like, oh, God, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. It starts now. And so obviously Jimmy's taken the moral high ground of, well, you didn't tell me that you had a power. How can I trust you ever again, etc., etc. And Keanu's like, shut the fuck up, Jimmy. Not enough of your bullshit. Oh my God, honestly. I really thought I'd like Jimmy going into the series, but I just find him a little bit irritating. He is giving big Heisem energy, and I don't know, I don't vibe with it. I don't. And it's annoying me so much. But anyway, it is what it is. I can't really say much else. But he obviously then says something that pisses the house off. And he says something along the lines of like, I'm going to pick you guys off 1 by 1. And I was like, well, yeah, that is the point of the game. But everyone's like, oh, how could you say that? And I'm like, you're going to have to do that. You do understand what you've signed up for. Ashley was taking a very moral high ground on this, being like, how could he say that? How could he say that? And I'm sitting there going, you're going to have to do that. If you want to win this show, you're going to have to pick everybody off 1 by 1. He's just being honest about it. Listen, I didn't think I'd be a Keanu stan, but I actually kind of am. I'm kind of backing him. He's kind of funny. He's kind of quick-witted, and he knows exactly how to press Jimmy's buttons, which is perfect. So, well done, Keanu. This was another just house meeting that is unforgettable. So far, they've all been incredibly entertaining. Wow. So, the person that was brought back to compete on Keanu's behalf was Casey from season 21. I think she was the winner. I haven't seen season 21, so all I know about her is that she's very good at competitions and she won the series. So, you know what? Fantastic. Glad to see you. I had no feeling towards her, so I don't know. I feel like it didn't really do much for me. But I'm assuming for Big Brother fans, it was like, oh my God, she's back. Cool. Fine, whatever. So, this challenge was based around Felicia, and I love Felicia. She was on BB25, treated very poorly by some people in the house, was besties with Sari when she wasn't arguing with Sari. So, you gotta love Mama Fee. So, she basically was saying words starting with cr, and every time she said creeper, they had to run and hit a button, and whoever was the last person to do it was eliminated. It was actually quite an entertaining challenge. The elimination order didn't surprise me in any way, shape or form. Kelly was out first. Ava was out next. Oh, I forgot to say Ava was picked for the challenge. My bad, guys. And then Jimmy and Keanu both just let go of their button by accident, which was really funny. So then it came down to Casey versus Adrian in like the final battle. And Adrian's obviously battling to win his place off of the block, which I'm like, that's quite high stakes. And Casey's just winning for Keanu. And Casey, she's won a lot of competitions in the past before, from what I've heard. And she won this competition again. So she's doing quite well with veto competitions. Is this potentially the first time that someone has won a veto when they're not competing on the series? Is that like a thing? I don't know. like I said, I've not seen much of the show. I've seen seasons 2 to 5 and then 24 onwards. So I'm not really the best BB historian, let's just put it that way. But either way, very, very entertaining veto, very, very exhilarating. And now Keanu's coming down from the block. So this is where I start to see the whole thing start to fall apart. And oh God, it was actually quite tough to watch for Jimmy. Jimmy has pissed off a couple of people too many this week. Not only has he nominated Adrian, Keanu and Kelly, pissing them off, but he's in a final 3 alliance with Mickey and Morgan, and I didn't even know about this, but they haven't been consulted in any way, shape or form about what's best for their game, as well as Jimmy's game. Jimmy's just going in on what he wants to do and not consulting with anybody or hearing anybody else's opinion. And so Mickey and Morgan are getting incredibly frustrated with him and being like, yo, what's going on? Why is he not talking to us? Why is he doing this? So then obviously they're like, okay, so Jimmy's thinking, who am I going to renom? Who am I going to renom? Who is this? For some reason, he's coming up with Amy. Why? Small fry at this point in the game. Small fry. Oh, it's to weaken Rachel. Sure, okay, like, I don't think Amy is a particularly strong person for Rachel's game. Yes, it's a number, but do you really want to waste your HOH on getting Amy out? Okay. Will was the alternate name, and I was sitting there thinking, again, Will is small fry. Why are we not trying to go for someone that is going under the radar? Someone like Catherine, someone like Lauren, someone like... No, Zach's in an alliance with him. I'm trying to think of other people, but like, at this point, I just feel like Jimmy is trying to salvage his HOH because it's ended in disaster. His main target is coming down off the block. So what is he meant to do? Pick a new target? His new target's Kelly. Oh, well, we're going to talk about what happens to Kelly in a minute. But his whole HOH, it's just getting messy. We're going to actually talk a lot about his HOH at the end and how much of a disaster it was, but let's just say, it's not looking good for him. Okay, so once again, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, Keanu, you can't possibly get yourself in any more pickles with people in the house, right? Right? Oh, God. It's a hard day to be a Keanu stan purely because he keeps on putting his foot in his mouth. Oh, my goodness. He's talking to Rachel and he's like, yo, I was a really big fan of you in your original series. Like, I haven't seen much of your original series, but like I've seen all the iconic parts. And she's like, oh, like what moments did you like? And he's like, oh, well, your argument with Reagan and this moment. And you just see Rachel's face fall and go, oh, so you see my like worst parts. Okay, cool. Right. And so she just walks off in a strop. And as much as I can understand why she would be pissed off about that, she's got to understand that fight with Reagan, I've not even seen her series, but I've seen that fight. I know that fight. I know and I understand that fight. I find it hilarious. I've seen some other things that don't exactly paint her in an amazing light, but make her an iconic Big Brother player. So Keanu being like, well, I haven't seen your series, but I have seen these iconic moments. She can't get upset about that, surely. But she did. And then she just like attacks Keanu and is like, I'm coming for you, etc, etc, etc. And I'm just sort of like, why? Why did we do this? This was so unnecessary. Like, actually, so unnecessary. However, living for the drama. And Rachel's now got beef with Keanu. And I'm sitting there thinking, hang on a minute. Not another one. Not another one. I can't take any more of this. Just absolutely mental and crazy. And you know what? I'm here for the drama, but Rachel, you need to calm yourself down. He was just being like, yeah, iconic moments, do you know what I mean? So now we come to the veto meeting, and Keanu, rather predictably, does take himself down. And then, obviously, he then puts Amy in Keanu's place, and Amy's like, oh, back here again. Hi, Kelly. And Kelly's like, well, not quite, because I'm activating my power, and I'm going to compete in a challenge to save myself. And Jimmy's thinking, no, not another secret power that I didn't know people had. No! So Kelly goes and competes in her little veto competition, which was basically build this puzzle. And it was quite easy. She finished with enough time to spare. So, yeah. So, she won the veto and she took herself down from the block. So now Jimmy has to nominate another person. Not another one. Honestly, I can't take any more of this. I've used the same joke within like literally 30 seconds of each other. I'm so sorry, guys. But this is what I mean. Just not another one. So then he nominates Will. So the final block looks like Will, Amy, Adrian. And I'm sitting here going, what a piss poor week Jimmy's had. What an absolutely dreadful week Jimmy's had, because he's getting rid of 3 weak competitors, in my opinion. I don't think Adrian's got much game. I don't think Will's got much game. I don't think Amy's got much game. I think Will actually has the most game and Will would make the most sense to get rid of, but he also has the most support in the house. So he ain't going anywhere. So this is just an absolutely horrendous week. Write it off. Let's move on to week 3. So moving into episode 3, which is the eviction episode. So we've done the first episode, HOH and noms. We've done the veto and the renoms. And now we're on to the eviction night. Amy was making some odd decisions. Amy is acting like Rachel is the most detrimental thing for her game. And to an extent, I agree. But equally, from what I've been reading on Twitter, obviously I don't have access to live feeds, but from what I've been reading on Twitter, Rachel is campaigning so much harder to save Amy than Amy is to save herself, which is mental to me. How are you sat on the block and you're just like, yeah, Rachel's the worst. I just don't understand how you get the audacity for that. And it seems like the majority of the house is gunning to get rid of Amy no matter what. I saw earlier on in the week that there was potential plans to save Amy, but I think at this point in the game, she just doesn't know what she's doing. And she has no game plan beyond, I'm gonna stick with Rachel and Ashley. There's no furthering of relationships with other people. There's nothing that makes people want to keep her in the house. They kept her last week, but that's because there was a threat sitting next to her. This week, when you've got Adrian and Will, who seem to be quite popular in the house, yeah, Amy's probably going to go home. So I don't understand why she's just not competing harder and trying to stay in the game, having conversations with people, trying to keep them around, keep them on side. I don't know what's going on. So Morgan and Mickey are like, yo, we have to save Will no matter the cost. We have to save him. There is no way he's going home. We are saving this man. And so they go to Ava and Ava's like, yeah, I want to save him. Absolutely, I want to save him. So then they bring their findings to Ashley. And Ashley's like, oh, should we vote Rachel in? And they're like, well, it will be at the detriment of Amy. Amy will go home. And obviously Rachel's like, I'm with Amy, and etc, etc, etc. But this does end up coming back to Rachel. And she dresses in black and walks into the head of household room and goes, I'm dressed for a funeral because you guys are burying one of my friends. And I was like, that is iconic. I'm sorry, this woman is absolutely amazing. I don't understand anyone that can hate her. She's endlessly entertaining. What do you mean she's dressed for a funeral? It's incredible. But the plan is basically, we are going to save Will at all costs, no matter what. Adrian's going home, even though Zach is confusing me currently. Because, and I think it was Morgan that made this point, and I was like, yeah, facts. Zach's like, I want to compete against the best, though, and Adrian's a real competitor. And Morgan's like, do you want to win? Like, why would you want to compete against the best when you can compete against weaker people and potentially win and make it further in the game? And I was sitting there thinking, thank you. Somebody has finally said it. I will never, ever, ever understand the mentality of, oh, I want to compete against the best. Okay, have fun losing then. Like, I don't understand. Do you know what I mean? It's so frustrating. Oh my god, it's so jarring all the time. But anyway, that is it for pre-eviction stuff. Let's move on to the actual eviction itself. So, the BB blockbuster this week was called Puzzling Prince, and essentially it was a puzzle. Now, the rules weren't made explicitly clear, and from what I've seen online, there's some discussion about whether Adrian was cheating, or whether Will and Amy were operating under some kind of false information. We're not sure. But there was a clear difference in tactic between the two of them, and it was interesting to see. Adrian was like taking loads of puzzle pieces at a time, whereas Will and Amy were bringing one piece at a time, which as far as I recall, seems to be the standard for this kind of challenge. You bring one piece at a time, you try and fit it in, you run back, you get another piece. Whereas Adrian brought all the pieces over and then started to fit the puzzle together, which would make it infinitely easier. So I don't know whether that was cheating or not. I'm going to say no, because they didn't explicitly say you have to bring it one at a time. But then again, I feel bad for Will and Amy, who are just operating under the, well, this is what they've always done on Survivor, on Big Brother, so therefore it must be the case. Adrian did win. And I was like, okay, this actually puts me in a difficult position, because I don't want Will or Amy to go home. Adrian was like yeah, he can go home if he wants. Like, I don't care. So now I've got to choose between Will and Amy, and I'm like, it's going to have to be Will. It's going to have to be Will, and I'm going to have to back Amy to leave. Do you know what I mean? So we come to the voting time, and after some decent speeches, both of them sit down and everyone heads into the diary room to vote. Rachel's up first and she votes for Amy, and I was like, out of everybody, I was expecting Rachel to maybe throw her a pity vote, but she even knows that, like, you don't want to vote against the crowd in this kind of situation. She's voting Amy. Morgan voted Amy. Riley voted Amy. Zach voted Amy. Ashley voted Amy. Mickey voted Amy. Kelly voted Amy. Lauren voted Amy. Adrian voted Amy. Ava voted Amy. Vince voted Amy. Catherine voted Amy. Keanu voted Amy. Every single person. It was 13-0. That is insane. And I feel bad for Amy. We haven't had this kind of a landslide in literally seasons. Since probably BB25, actually, because they had all unanimous votes apart from one, which was so jarring to watch. But either way, this was a tense vote. I knew that it was going to come down to Amy. I'm not disappointed with her going. She didn't play the best game. Yeah, let's talk about her game. So Amy was the accomplice, and I almost wish that they'd have given her more stuff to do with the accomplice. Like, it was just a couple of things on opening night and then it was kind of over. I wish they'd have given her more to do throughout. I think that they needed to have made that a bigger role, maybe have it all the way throughout the series or until she was voted out, and then maybe she passed the mantle on to somebody else, something like that. That would have been cool. I feel like she didn't really have a grasp on the game. She didn't understand how to play it. She didn't know where she was going with her game plan. She just wasn't vibing well with this challenge. So I was just like, yeah, cool, whatever. You can go home. There's other people in the house that I know are going to play harder and play faster. And I actually think that voting out Amy is Rachel's best plan at this point, because it makes her seem isolated when actually she's got some very, very good allies. She's got Ashley, she's got Morgan, she's got Mickey. She's got a good, tight-knit group around her that people don't necessarily suspect. So that is going to work to her advantage. But that isn't to say that Amy leaving is going to have a detrimental effect on her. I do feel like she's going to go on a vengeance now, and she's going to target potentially Jimmy. I don't know. I don't know what she's going to do from now on. This is a real tester week, because Lauren is now head of household. She could land herself in trouble. I'm not sure what she's going to do, but we'll see how it goes. So let's discuss this week in a nutshell. Jimmy's head of household was absolutely abysmal. Just the most shocking thing I've ever seen in my whole life. It was not only a bad week for him, it was a bad week for several people in the house. Keanu and Kelly had to sacrifice their powers to take themselves off the block. They're now very vulnerable because they could easily just get renommed, and they now have no assurance that they can take themselves off the block. You have Adrian, who now seems like an easy target. He's been on the block once. He can go on it again. Same with Will. Jimmy had to nominate a third of the house this week. That is a third of the house that now probably doesn't appreciate him as much as they did before. And even though Ashley's now gone, not Ashley, Amy's now gone, there's still 4 people in the house that could potentially be gunning for him. And fortunately, none of them won head of household, but they could potentially get in Lauren's ear. You never know. So I feel like this was like a 2 out of 10 at best. He got head of household by pure fluke. I'm not being funny. And then proceeded to just make bad decision after bad decision. Never ever put your person up, the person you want to go home, straight away. Wait until after veto. And if someone is on the block, you need to have... Okay, this is how it should have gone. If Kelly was his secondary person, he puts Kelly up first. Kelly, Adrian, Amy. Cool. Then Kelly might win the veto. She didn't. She was quite shit at it. But someone could take her down. and then he can put Keanu up. Keanu then has to compete in Blockbuster, and then if he wins, is what it is, out of my hands, do you know what I mean? Isn't down to my decisions. My person was up there, he won fair and square. The mistake he made was putting 2 targets up, and then both of them had powers and they got taken down. If you want someone to use their power, make sure that they don't do it before it has an impact. Do you know what I mean? If you wanted to nominate someone who you think has a power, do it after the vetoes has been played. Because if it's a veto thing, sucks to be them. Do you know what I mean? Cool. You can't use it now. You're stuck on the block. If he had put Keanu up in the renom section after Kelly had used hers, he wouldn't have been able to use his power. But because he got put up in the first one, he was able to use his power and take himself down. I'm just saying, Jimmy, you played a bad game this week. A really, really monumental stinker. 5 people nommed. And then the 3 people sat at the end were not any of your targets that you started the week with. That's mental. And then you just got rid of Amy because it's like, oh, well, might as well get rid of her. That was a weak move. Weak move. But anyway, it is what it is. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Do all of that YouTube stuff that you guys do so unbelievably well. And I will see you guys in the next episode, whenever that may be. We're actually not going to be back next Saturday, so stay tuned for the next episode, probably on Tuesday. It will probably be around then because I'm away for the weekend, so therefore I don't have time to record before the eviction comes out. Well, I have time to record before the eviction, but I don't have time to watch the eviction and then record. I'll be away. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have enjoyed. And comment down below. What do you think of Jimmy's HOH? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Let me know your thoughts. I'm open to all discussion in the comment section. Let me know who you're enjoying, who you're not enjoying. And let's go. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. See you guys later. Keep on ranting. Bye now.